Evile is one of those bands that I found when I was like 14 or something. I had been getting really deep into the new wave of modern thrash metal revival, and these guys, along with Havoc, Municipal Waste, Gamma Bomb, and I think Warbringer, were being really highly praised at the time. A lot of people were calling these guys a must-listen. Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawwalker, your host, and today we're going to be checking out this new record from Evile, The Unknown. At the time I was just getting into Evile, I think Five Serpent's Teeth had just been released like a year or two prior, so along with Enter the Grave, an album many consider today to be a modern thrash classic, and the follow-up Infected Nations, I had a lot of newer material to dig into. And I did. I dug very heavily into their catalog, but found myself really going for Five Serpent's Teeth more often than not, and I still absolutely love the guitar work on Origin of Oblivion. I still love the vocal work on those early records. A year or two after the band's 2013 record Skull, the band went quiet, which I thought was pretty unfortunate, pretty much a bummer. You know, they weren't really my favorite band or anything, but they had some pretty promising material out. And then out of seemingly nowhere, they dropped Hell Unleashed in 2021, which I'm still a bit torn about because it is a bit of a departure from their older material. I mean, there is still some really heavy stuff there, really solid riff work, but the departure of their original singer ended up being really off-putting for me. And now that wind of change has really swept through on this new record, and I am generally a fan when bands like to come through and develop their sound more. I think most of the time it's a smart move. But moving back to when I first saw people talking about these guys on internet forums, I vividly recall people comparing these guys to Metallica, and back then that was pretty high praise, but nowadays that still rings true, but instead it's like they took the same steps that Metallica took leading up to the Black Album creatively, which I think is kind of a weirdly obvious move. I mean, sonically, track 2, The Mask We Wear, is giving me like musical deja vu, like I'm listening to some sort of alternate reality version of Sad But True, but with a less impressive vocal performance and arguably more creative but worse written guitar parts. And maybe this was unintentional, but I'm really not sure. Like, down to the album cover having basically the same color scheme of the Black Album, to there even being a lot more ballad-heavy work on this record, like the track When Mortal Coil Shed, which feels like some sort of bastardized The Unforgiven meets Nothing Else Matters. That is at least the album usually at its worst. At its best, it treads over the same ground that the band has been plodding along with for 20 years, though on this outing, it's with these vocals that sound like a blend between Matt Shadows, James Hetfield, and at some points, maybe like Al Cisneros. Even when the record is blasting you over the head with this full-on thrash riffing and some frankly really good drum work, they can't help but really not fully commit to the bit, with the exception of Out of Sight, which is still held back by some incredibly goofy vocal production that would be way more at home on like an Anthrax record, which is what they seem to be pulling from for this one. I do think right off the bat, the first song, the title track The Unknown, is a very big red flag. Admittedly, this one, it sounds good, production work is tight but fairly sterile at points, though that is kind of a given for Evile. There's a point in the lyrics where the singer ponders on whether or not he is a fraud, which, considering the lines that can be drawn from this record to a lot of really notable early thrash records, I say that is a bit more apt than they were intending. I'm not really stoked on this one. There's basically two decent to good tracks here, and that's Sleepless Eyes and Out of Sight, and those songs still feel incredibly derivative in the worst ways. I've been saying this for years now, thrash as a genre is on life support, and this is a prime example of why. Beyond just the newest releases from the Big Four, these modern contemporary thrash bands cannot help but unintentionally delineate themselves with every other modern thrash band. And I don't really know what it's going to take, but there needs to be a better way than this, because if this is the point that the new wave of this thrash genre is getting to, then I don't really know if there is much of a future for thrash metal. Now, I know bands change and evolve and move on with time, but it really is like watching the progression of thrash from the 80s into the 90s in real time again. I'm not particularly confident that there's going to be any acts coming along who are going to break this cycle, but this needs to be addressed or this genre is just gonna stay dead in the water. The Unknown is a solid 4. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of this album in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe. Check out my Instagram, my Reverb, and my Depop. Links to all of those are in the description below. Thank you all so much again for watching. We'll see you on the flip side.